The T501 Next Step whiskey I made a little while ago here on the channel. It is time to reassess it again. And, spoiler alert guys, one of these is getting bottled and put on the shelf, and the other needs a little bit more time. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. This is the T501 whiskey that I made a while ago, and I actually put a video up of me tasting it at the 1 month point. The plan was to make a whiskey that would age quickly enough to be drinkable at 1 month. I wasn't quite happy with those results, so I decided to leave it for 1 more month and then test it again. Unfortunately, I kind of forgot about it. And it's been a little bit longer than that now. It's at the point of recording, I don't know when this video go out, but at the point of recording, it's been about 6 weeks since the last check-in. So that is 2.5 months total. In any case, guys, I'm standing around talking. This is a tasting video and I don't even have glasses. So here we go. Now we're in business. So let's just get stuck straight into this. But for those of you that are regular viewers and somehow, missed what's going on here, the idea was to create an all grain recipe for beginners, with the idea being that all grain's not hard, but it can be intimidating when you're first getting into it, right? So this is something that's kind of like an easy way to get started on all grain with a big ass safety net. If you haven't seen the videos, you can check it out up here. We used a bunch of specialty malt and different base grains to essentially crowbar in complexity on these products. And I wanted them to be able to age pretty quickly, so a new distiller can get straight into being able to drink stuff. Anyway, shall we? Let's do this one first. This is the one that had Kentucky Bourbon Staves Recharred, so it's basically new American oak. This one was exactly the same staves, but those staves had been used already, so this is like second use, like a second use barrel. Cool? All right, so the first thing that jumped out at me when I picked this up the other night and had a little taste was apple. Apple jumped out of nowhere. It wasn't there, not like this, last time I tasted it. And it is not that weird kind of cross between Granny Smith apple and grassy, like green grassiness that you get in new whiskey sometimes. It's not that. It's like juicy, ripe, crispy red apple, but not the crazy sweet stuff. More like a Brayburn, actually. And it plays really, really nicely with the Munich malt flavor, which is the base malt that we switched out a whole lot of the standard malt for. Not a huge amount of the darker stuff in here. The coffee, the molasses, or probably more like golden syrup or treacle. A little bit of it, but it's only just there. And there's still a hint of that antique oiled furniture sort of thing going on that I was talking about last time, but that's dialed down a lot. It's quite nice on the nose, I must say. Here's where it gets real interesting though. When it first hits your mouth, you get this honey sweetness that's really nice. It explodes into this giant apple flavor, which is what I described before, with a hint of cherry, just a hint of kind of like American bourbon cherry. And then it fades off into ever increasingly dark and grungy flavors, which is awesome. So it goes from, apple sweetness to honey to caramel, and then the wood starts coming in, and then it just dives down into coffee and treacle and really dark chocolate. And then after you swallow, it gets even crazier. So that's when the flavors really come out. So right now, it actually tastes more strongly in my mouth than when I first swallowed, which is pretty bizarre. But it sort of undulates between this deep, rich wood flavor and that Munich biscuity. If you don't know what I mean by Munich, oh man, kind of like Anzac biscuits, I guess, but you're not going to get those in America. Oh man, just buy some Munich malt and eat it. Like, go to a homebrew store and buy 100 grams of it and eat some of it. You'll get it. It's interesting actually, because the only other thing that I've ever made with something similar to Munich is when I made my own specialty corn. Check up here for the video. But basically, you know, I roasted or toasted corn to different levels to get different flavors out of it, and then made a spirit out of it. And it actually had a pretty similar flavor profile to Munich in a lot of ways. It had that sort of roasty, toasty, instead of tasting like, I mean, it tasted like roasted corn, funnily enough, instead of roasted barley. But when the whiskey was new, it had a very, very similar flavor to this. Unfortunately, as that whiskey got older, that bright, toasty, roasty, bready, confectionery, like bready baking flavor degraded over time into just weird old bread. No, not old bread, old corn chips. Funnily enough, you know when you open a bag of corn chips and go, oh yeah, this is like 2 years too old? Yeah, it started going like that. This isn't going that way at all. It's heading the opposite way. It's going more fruity, so it's heading towards apple and grapes, which is really, really interesting. Why? I can't tell you. I wish I knew. If you guys have got ideas on that, drop them down below, because it is interesting. Anyway, this is really, really good. I'm happy with this. I will drink this now. If I bottle it and put it on my shelf, sometimes I'll reach for this and settle for Rig 10, 100%. So I am going to bottle it. I'm going to bottle this now. There's a small part of me, actually there's a not so small part of me, that wants to leave this in a bottle and see what happens. But the thing is, man, I am so bad at never bottling the spirits I make. They sit in the glass jars, they sit out here and they get older and older and older, which is cool, especially when I want to, you know, like learn what happens. But I come out and I pop the top, I taste them every now and again, and the level slowly goes down. But I never get to just sit on the couch and enjoy one of my whiskeys while I'm watching Netflix, for example. Yeah, so I'm just going to bottle it. Screw it. That's what I'm going to do. As far as Erin goes, my wife, this is one of her favorite things that I've made so far as well. So, you know, that's big praise from her. All right, moving on over here. So on the nose, two things. Number one, the apple's not there. It is there. Well, that's not true, actually. It's there. But instead of being straight up fresh apple, it's more like grapes. Yeah, more like grapes. So we've got kids at the moment, and apparently one of the worst things the most evil thing you could ever do is give a kid a grape to eat, because that'll kill them. So what you have to do is you have to cut them into quarters every time they want a grape. This is what it reminds me of. Cutting up a whole bunch of grapes, red grapes specifically. It's kind of like that. So it's a similar flavor, but it's not as intense. And instead of having that like solid wood thing humming along underneath, it has a much, much softer wood that lends itself more towards the honey, kind of almost like sweet croissant pastry. You know, like if you have like a chocolate croissant. Not the chocolate itself, but the pastry. Yeah. Almost none of the Munich on the nose, interestingly enough. Here's the thing though. Without that really big, bold wood character sitting underneath it all, it just doesn't have as much flavor to mask up the youngness, the shininess, the greenness of the spirit. And it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but it's not as good as this, simply because that weird young whiskey sensation and flavor doesn't show up nearly as much over here. I mean, it's probably there. It's probably exactly the same. It's just being masked up. So this one, I could bottle it, but honestly, if I did, I wouldn't drink it right now. It'd sit there and just not get drunk. So we'll let this one age a little bit longer. I have to say though, I like where it's headed. I like the juxtaposition between these two things. This tastes like, trying to think of the closest thing I could say, and this is an insult to them and way too much praise for me, is it tastes a little bit like Balcones sort of profile whiskies, where they do have this distinctly, it isn't bourbon, it isn't corn, but it's American flavor going on to it. Just big new oak in a single malt, basically. Whereas this is heading towards, you know, it's got more of like a Scotch wood profile to it, which makes a whole lot of sense because it's second use barrels. Anyway, guys, I need to say huge thank you to the Patreons. Thank you so much, guys, for letting me do this stuff. And let's face it, people that are watching this video are kind of the core regular viewers, and you guys on Patreon are the regular of the regulars, if that makes sense. So yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. I'll filter this basically with a over-engineered tea strainer and bottle it up. And this one, we'll let it keep going. I've got no idea how long it's going to keep going for. If you guys get to the point where you haven't heard anything from this stuff for a while and you want to know what's going on, shout out in the comments of the videos, whatever, and let me know you want to, get an update. If I see something delicious going on with it, I'll do an update too. An update for the core Chase the Craft crew, the OGs, and I'll catch you next time, guys. Keep on chasing the craft. See ya.